Have you ever walked into a pharmacy to buy a simple medication, and walked out wondering how that tiny little pill could cost so much? You pay, you pocket the change, you walk out. And you never really stop to think about what just happened. Because the answer to that question isn't sitting on the shelf. It's a lot farther away than that. Behind that little box there's an industry that moves trillions of dollars every single year, brings together some of the most valuable companies on the planet, and decides, in a way you've never actually seen, the price of your own health. Who makes this medication? Who decides that price, and why? And how did an industry that exists, in theory, to save lives, turn into one of the richest empires in the entire history of money? Subscribe right now, because this empire hides layers that are going to leave your jaw on the floor. And the first one doesn't even look like it's hiding anything. Looking at it from the outside, the story is beautiful. This industry helped wipe out disease, increase life expectancy, and transform medicine into what we know today. And it's not just a figure of speech to say it's one of the most powerful industries in the entire global economy. Just to give you an idea of the scale, one single year of this industry's revenue could cover the public health budget of entire continents, for several years in a row. You could build a brand new hospital in every capital city on the planet, and still have change left over. But it wasn't always this massive. Come back in time with me. For most of human history, medicine was made by hand. You'd get sick, and you'd go find an apothecary. Someone who mixed herbs, minerals, and natural extracts, an almost handmade recipe, put together right there on the spot for your specific case. Nobody was mass-producing 1,000 identical pills. Because science barely understood why diseases happened, let alone how to properly treat them. That only changed in the 19th century. While the Industrial Revolution was reinventing factories, cities, and transportation, a group of researchers realized something. The same chemical advances that were mass-producing fabric and steel could also mass-produce medicine. Instead of mixing one dose at a time, it became possible to manufacture thousands of identical units, same dosage, same composition, same quality standard. That's when the modern pharmaceutical industry was born. That's the moment when names you still recognize today started to appear. Bayer, founded in Germany in 1863. Merck, expanding its industrial operations year after year. And other labs understood very early on one simple thing. Discovering a drug wasn't just science. It was one of the most stable businesses that existed anywhere on the face of the earth. Because think about it with me. People are always going to keep getting sick. New diseases are always going to show up. The population is always going to get older, needing more ongoing treatment. It's not luck. It's not a market coincidence. It's not chance. It's the most solid, most lasting foundation any business could ever dream of having. And that foundation would get supercharged, just a few decades later, by two of the biggest conflicts in human history. In 1914, World War I threw millions of soldiers into the mud of a trench, where the enemy wasn't just the bullet. It was the infection that killed, days later, the men who'd survived combat itself. Governments figured it out fast. Keeping an army standing depended just as much on medicine as it did on weapons. Demand for painkillers, antiseptics, and anesthetics shot up overnight. And labs that used to produce dye and chemical reagents turned into real, full-scale industrial factories. With more plants, more know-how, technology that would stick around decades after the last shot was fired. Just think about the scale of that. Medicine that, just the day before, was made in small handmade batches, was suddenly being manufactured in volumes big enough to supply millions of soldiers across multiple continents at the same time. 20 years later, the world went to war again. And this time, science solved one of the biggest medical problems humanity had ever faced. Penicillin. Discovered years earlier by Alexander Fleming, it existed on paper, but nobody knew how to produce it in volumes big enough to save an entire army. That's when one lab, still small compared to the giant it would become, bet big on large-scale fermentation. The name of that lab was Pfizer. That bet didn't just save thousands of soldiers. It put the company decades ahead of any competitor. When the war ended, all that infrastructure got redirected toward the civilian population. Infection stopped being a death sentence. Infant mortality dropped off a cliff. Vaccines became routine at your local clinic. Life expectancy shot up like never before. It was the golden age of modern medicine. And that's when pharmaceutical companies discovered something that would change their future forever. Every new scientific discovery was also a global market opening up. It kicked off an international race for innovation that never stopped. Billions started getting poured into research. Universities became partners with the labs. Over time, this whole game got more and more concentrated. Billion-dollar mergers brought together labs that used to compete with each other. That's how, decades later, Novartis was born, joining two Swiss chemical giants into a single block. The same thing happened, under different names, in almost every major market in the world. But just discovering a drug wasn't enough. You had to stop any competitor from copying the formula the very next day. Because here's the thing, that's just the facade. The pretty part, the part any corporate report would love to repeat over and over. But I promise you this, there's a mechanism behind all of it that explains, all by itself, why a medication can cost 10, 20, 100 times more than it actually costs to make. Before we get into this, hit that like button, because now we're getting into the real reason this industry is worth trillions. Imagine spending more than 10 years and billions of dollars developing a drug. The day after launch, a competitor copies your formula and sells it cheaper, without spending a dime on research, without taking any of the risks you took. Would you invest billions again? Probably not. That's exactly what patents were created to solve. A temporary exclusivity that guarantees only the company that discovered the drug can commercially exploit it, for a period set by law. And in the pharmaceutical industry, this mechanism carries more weight than in any other industry. Because developing a drug is an incredibly expensive lottery, almost cruel, thousands of molecules tested in the lab, the vast majority discarded along the way, some work but cause side effects too severe, others fail exactly during human trials after years and millions already invested, and only 1 out of thousands actually makes it to the pharmacy, after more than a decade of research and clinical testing. The cost of all that adds up to billions of dollars per approved drug. That's the risk companies use to justify the price of the patent. There's some logic to that argument. But this is exactly where the problem lives. As long as the patent holds, there's zero competition for that drug. The company negotiates the price with almost no market pressure, directly with the government, with insurance companies, with the entire healthcare system. The result? Treatments for rare diseases or cutting-edge therapies that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per patient. Some run into the millions, for a single round of treatment. In a lot of cases, the price of one of these treatments could buy an entire house, in cash, in most cities in the world. It's not a tax. It's not a shortage of raw materials. It's not chance. It's a business model. Second layer, invisible marketing. Because just discovering a good drug doesn't guarantee anything. It still has to win the trust of doctors, hospitals, the entire healthcare system. And in a lot of countries, the law limits prescription drug advertising directly to consumers. So the industry focused its efforts on a single target, the doctor. Pharmaceutical reps visit doctors' offices regularly. They present hand-picked clinical studies. They build a relationship of trust, year after year, with the person who signs the prescription. And the reach goes beyond the doctor's office. Medical conferences, international symposiums, scientific events, a lot of them sponsored by companies that have a direct financial interest in the outcome of that knowledge being passed along. Flights paid for, hotels paid for, all in the name of scientific development. That doesn't mean every doctor makes decisions in a manipulated way. It means a good chunk of the technical information that reaches them has already passed through the hands of someone who profits from that prescription. And in the United States, where direct-to-consumer advertising is allowed, there's actually a third target, you, straight through the screen, encouraged to go ask your doctor about a specific drug, before you even know if you need it. Think about those commercials full of people smiling, running on the beach, while a voice in the background rattles off, fast and quiet, a huge list of possible side effects. It's not pure science acting on its own. It's not a market coincidence. It's decision engineering at an industrial scale, carefully planned, year after year. Third layer, the quietest one of all, this financial incentive also shapes what science decides to research first. Rare diseases, which affect a small population, have historically attracted less investment because the projected return is smaller. Chronic diseases, which require medication for the rest of your life, tend to attract more research because they guarantee recurring revenue for decades, not a one-time cure that ends the consumption cycle. I'm not saying there's some secret plan signed in a dark room somewhere. I'm saying the financial incentive pushes research in that direction, structurally, almost without anyone noticing the pattern from the outside. Ongoing treatment is more profitable than an outright cure. Fourth layer, why this empire never stops growing, even under so much criticism. Because there's a structural engine that doesn't depend on any single company. The need for healthcare never goes away, unlike any other market, which depends on desire or convenience. People keep getting sick. New diseases keep showing up. The world's population keeps getting older, and that aging brings more diabetes, more hypertension, more cardiovascular disease, treatment that stays with the patient for years, sometimes for the rest of their life. Add to that constant innovation, biologic therapy, immunotherapy, treatment for rare diseases that, just a few decades ago, wasn't even a possibility. Every new frontier medicine also opens up a new frontier of revenue. Add to that the fact that healthcare has become a strategic priority for practically every country on Earth. Government, hospitals, universities, private companies, everyone pouring billions, every single year, into research and medical infrastructure. That means the industry doesn't just depend on your wallet. It lives inside a massive chain, public system, private insurance, research centers, regulatory agencies, all of it pushing consumption forward, even in the middle of an economic crisis. Few industries grow as much during a recession as this one does. And the system feeds itself, almost like a perpetual motion machine. More investment generates more innovation generates more complex treatment requires, once again, even more investment. The cycle never closes on its own. It's not stagnation. It's not coincidence. It's a gear designed to keep spinning forever. Fifth layer, the price of all this in your life, and in the industry's biggest scandals. In the United States, the most serious case involved opioid painkillers, widely used to treat pain, but with the risk of addiction treated, in practice, as much smaller than reality would later show. Doctors were incentivized to prescribe them on a massive scale. Patients trusted them, took them, needed more and more. The result was a wave of addiction and overdose so massive it officially became a public health crisis, with lawsuits and billion-dollar settlements in American courts. Other drugs stayed on the market for years until later studies revealed serious side effects that nobody had properly caught during the initial approval. Only after a lot of people had already been exposed did the problem come to light. And there were also companies accused of using legal loopholes to stretch out patent exclusivity, a small tweak to the formula, a new way of administering the same active ingredient, enough to justify a new round of exclusivity and push back the generic's entry past the original deadline. Notice the pattern that repeats in almost every single case, almost always the same. First comes the promise. Then comes the rapid growth in sales. Only afterward, almost always too late, comes the investigation. Worth saying clearly, this doesn't mean the whole industry acts in bad faith. Most drugs work, save lives, and went through rigorous testing before they ever got to you. But it shows that when science, profit, and health walk hand in hand, the financial incentive isn't always on your side. And when that happens, who ends up paying the bill in the end, is almost always the person sitting in the waiting room, not the executive sitting in the boardroom. But not everything in this system is pure imbalance. When a patent expires and generics actually hit the market, the price of a lot of treatments drops off a cliff, in many cases, down to a small fraction of the original price. Competition working the way it's supposed to from the start. And there's another force pushing this industry forward. No single pharmaceutical company dominates the market alone. Pfizer, Roche, Novartis, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and plenty of others compete, every single day, over discoveries, over patents, over scientific breakthroughs. That competition speeds up innovation in a way no single company could ever pull off on its own. And the next leap has already started: gene therapy, genetic editing, artificial intelligence speeding up molecule analysis and cutting down time that used to take years of lab work. Instead of one drug for millions of people at once, the future is pointing toward treatment designed around each patient's own genetic profile. In other words, the mechanism does have a real counterweight, and science really is moving forward. But that counterweight needs careful regulation, patent terms actually being enforced, and constant oversight, because without that kind of care, the original imbalance always ends up winning in the end. So maybe the right question isn't why is medicine so expensive? Maybe the right question is, how much of that price is the real cost of discovering a cure, and how much of it is just the cost of keeping a temporary monopoly running for as long as possible? You're not going to find that answer printed on the little box at the pharmacy. No package insert is going to tell you that. Because at the end of the day, this empire isn't just made of companies, formulas, and labs. It's made of choices. Of real scientific progress. Of regulatory limits that sometimes work and sometimes fail. And of a demand that's never going away as long as there are sick people on this planet. It's not fate. It's not blind destiny. It's a system built by human decisions, over more than a century, and human decisions can always be questioned, revisited, held accountable. But now you know where to look. And what you do with that, starting today, that's on you. If this video opened your eyes to a market you use every single day without really understanding it, hit that like button, drop a comment about what you already suspected, and subscribe, because the next empire we're peeling back here is closer to you than you think. Maybe it's in your health insurance plan. Maybe it's in your next doctor's appointment. And next time you walk past your local pharmacy and grab that colorful little box off the shelf, remember, behind it there's always someone, very well informed, deciding exactly what your health is worth. Capital Dark. We don't tell you what everyone already knows. We show you what nobody's told you yet.